Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This session is Business Management for Emerging Entrepreneurs Post-COVID-19. Our speaker today is Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade. When Dr. Olutoyin left her home country of Nigeria to live in Canada, she was the group treasurer of the Intercontinental Bank of Nigeria. She had worked in Nigeria, London, Ghana, and New York. When she arrived in Canada, she at first tried to replicate her position in Nigeria, but it was not to be. She struggled to find her way and determined she would be an entrepreneur, and so she started. Along the way, she also obtained her PhD whilst raising 3 young children. First, she formed INCAP as the managing partner at a real estate investment firm. From there, she started Casa Foundation as an incubator, empowering women and youth. Under the auspices of Casa Foundation, she has successfully created Friends of Africa, which will celebrate 10 years in October. This is a 2-day symposium introducing investors to opportunities in Africa. She also owns and operates Entrepreneurs Point, a shared office space with a difference. She offers mentoring and practical course studies for entrepreneurs under EP Academy, teaching new entrepreneurs how to think and how to become an entrepreneur. She teaches them from her own journey, and she speaks from her hard-earned experience of how to successfully launch an entrepreneurial career. Please welcome Dr. Olutoyin. Our first question for you today, Olu, is how do you see the role of the CFO evolving, and how can they best manage emerging entrepreneurs?
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Cheryl. Thank you so much. First, let's start with the statistics. The current reality in Canada today is that 18.3 million individuals have applied for CURB, during this COVID era. That's a total value of about $54 billion in dollars. Another 521,000 employers have applied for the CEWS, the wage subsidy, with a value of another 15.7 billion, whilst a total of about 669,000 businesses have actually applied for CEBA, and that's about 26 billion disbursed to date. Now, you need to keep in mind that window of CEBA is widening to accommodate more businesses. And so when you look at all of these statistics, what that tells you is that there's a huge potential for small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs to emerge, to evolve into becoming business owners and entrepreneurs in this era. Why is this very important as we speak today? The emerging reality is that more professionals, the regular people doing the 9-to-5 jobs and so on, are thinking to start their own businesses as a way of leaping out of the lockdown and becoming economically free, becoming economically independent. And this is very important because there's a huge opportunity for CFOs to leverage the fact that people are now looking to become entrepreneurs and dumping the 9-to-5 jobs, as it were, or doing that side by side with running their own businesses. The huge opportunity then is that entrepreneurial CFOs need to begin to position themselves to manage new businesses. Evolving CFOs, for most of the CFOs, they actually have the capability to parachute into companies that address the issues that we face today, making recommendations, providing oversight, and then moving on. It's a best case scenario where from small to medium-sized companies that can't afford a full CFO, they begin to run as consulting, like consulting services and offering these services to emerging entrepreneurs. When salaried CFOs have challenges in structuring their consultancies, for instance, by creating a brand story, understanding the challenges of marketing their services, and either expressing themselves, in a manner that captures the needs of their client, they can then actually restructure their current setup, their current sizes, and then begin to position well ahead of time to capture the kind of clients that they will need to book even right now. There are several models, that are already in place. They may be looking to copy or to emulate some of these models. One is a single practitioner model. Another is to join a group of complementary services, service providers, or find a group where they will be listed and someone who will help to promote their services. What that does for them is they will be able to maximize the opportunities of this season. One challenge, though, will be to define their services, and another will be to define their ideal client. It may not be advisable to say just anybody works for them right now, but they need to become an expert in the niche market. I'll just say, this is a world apart, and there's a lot of knowledge flowing out of there. But what's important is for them to create a niche market, to leverage the opportunities presenting itself right now through aspiring and emerging entrepreneurs, to ensure that they are either available to serve on boards, to become mentors to these folks who perhaps have no clue or have no full idea of what it means to run entrepreneurial ventures. The CFOs will come in handy here. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Projecting forward for the next 6 months, what do you see as the main concerns CFOs will need to address as a result of the pandemic?
Well, it is no longer news that we will see a lot of changes in the market. We have seen so many changes. This is CFOs will need to gear up for the new normal, because remember that these are groups of people always focusing on numbers and so on. However, in terms of changes in the workplace, the structure, the staff, those ones who choose to work from home, taking care of safety and health standards, making sure that the standards are in place. The approach will change for CFOs. One, to manage these changes. Two, for them to also make informed decisions, particularly as it regards implementing safety guidelines, guidelines from Health Canada, for instance, social distancing, what exactly, how many people need to be at work on a particular on particular occasions. It would differ from place to place. So, for instance, the kind of decisions that a CFO would need to take when regarding a small business, for instance, would differ from that which it needs to take regarding a large organization. CFOs would need to appoint value agents to ensure compliance with whatever decisions are being taken at this time. How, for instance, questions that the CFO would need to ask could relate to how should a large location be configured now? Which real estate leases should be closed? How many branches do you have? If you're a CFO in a large organization, which contracts should be discontinued? Which ones are priority right now that we should continue with? These are some of the areas that the CFO will need to concert some efforts on. Logistics, supply chains, should staffing be by contract? Or should they be part-time? What is best for a manufacturing firm at this particular time, post-COVID? This will differ. These types of decisions will differ, depending on the sector. The decision that a CFO in an academic institution or a financial institution will be taken will differ from what a small business CFO will be taken. But what is important is that the CFO needs to be proactive, very proactive in decision making, making sure that those decisions are monitored, they are measured, per time, in a timely fashion, and they are reviewed from time to time. Budgeting also becomes very critical. Why is budgeting important? Being proactive with budgeting. You can imagine a CFO that has made projections for the next 6 months, 1 year. This is the time to go back to the drawing table if they already haven't done so, to rejig and to check those figures again, to see what stays, what goes, and what services need to be shared, who to share with new partners, and so on. We run a shared working space downtown Toronto. There's been all those questions as to which offices should be moving in with us, which ones would actually want to maximize that opportunity of shared services at this time, just to maximize the opportunity of saving costs. So budgeting issues need to be addressed. Where are the deficits? What are the gaps in the balance sheet right now? for a CFO? How will these gaps be covered? Which resources should go? Which ones should be retained? And which of the emergency benefits offered by the federal government or the provincial government needs to be leveraged? These are the kinds of decisions. And how long should the CFO look to retain some of those government support? These are the kind of decisions that I would expect, to my mind, that the CFO should be taking right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Olutoyin, how do you see companies pivoting to remain successful in the future?
Well, in my opinion, the CFO will need to, will need to fast track that learning curve, because there's been a lot of learning, in recent times, things that we never thought possible. As a numbers person myself, when you deal with figures, sometimes you really need to see the hard figures. You need to see, papers all over. But now, in the new era, the techie, like the digital economy has become so popular, doing everything the virtual, way, working remotely and things like that, becomes the new normal, actually. Because we've seen in the last couple of months that a lot of things we can actually complete transactions online without even seeing across nations, across continents. These are major issues to consider in decision making in the future. I know that, a lot of people work remotely, right? But actually doing everything remotely, from conferences to all, like just as we're doing right now, becomes really critical to decision making. What kind of cost saving measures can you actually take to maximize that opportunity, yet to ensure that every staff member is impacted and that the bottom line of the organization is not negatively impacted? These are some of the decisions, and these are some of the decisions that CFOs and the C-suite, members of the C-suite, will need to carefully review, reconsider, and be abreast of and well ahead of it, so that they can actually remain relevant in the future. Whilst we're talking and focusing on safety standards and so on, it becomes a prerogative of a CFO, for instance, to ensure that not only team members embracing the digital economy, and so on, but that at least they actually put the necessary measures in place, the necessary infrastructure to expand the scope of whatever equipment that is required, the technological equipment, and so on, to ensure that this actually becomes the new normal for every other member of staff working from home, working remotely, or if there are companies represented across the globe, ensuring that there is a synergy built over time without actually feeling the impact of the gaps created by working remotely. Because for a long time, it would appear that this will be the new normal. The CFO will also, and the members, of course, members of executives of major companies, large to small organizations, will also need to actually not only embrace the digital economy, but also to ensure that members of staff, communication becomes seamless. Because when you're working remotely, everybody needs to understand what is going on, where what the company goals remains at a time like this, so that everybody is working in tandem. People are working in sync, and this actually would also help the bottom line of a company. A lot of large organizations I found in this COVID era don't actually have the e-commerce platforms. I found that actually quite shocking. That some organizations that are actually very well known, including some that are Fortune 500 in the Fortune 500 category, are actually just setting up their e-commerce platforms because they never thought about it. Because perhaps due to the culture of the organization or the tradition, or perhaps the demographics they've always served, they perhaps thought it was not necessary to have their e-commerce platforms. But now, this is the time for big, large, small, medium-based sized organizations need to actually ensure that all of these platforms are in place. Members of staff are well communicated with, and somebody who is in charge of that communication is not only communicating, but is communicating effectively as and when due, and steadily, consistently. This is very important, not only for retention of clients, but also for services that are being offered to be adequately and amply communicated to staff, to clients, and to all suppliers and partners. This will be the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're finished right on time. Thank you so much for those insights. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you again.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Cheryl. Thank you.